Last week, Joel led us through week one talking about phones, and he had this line that he used that has really stuck with me. It's actually a paraphrase of something that Jesus said coming out of the Message. Let's throw that up real quick. It was this question: what kind of deal is it to get everything you want but lose yourself? And we were talking about phones and kind of like the impact they can have on us and how there's so much power and so many things you can do with it that are so good, but sometimes they can be kind of a little addicting and all-encompassing, right? And kind of start shaping us in ways that maybe we don't want. And I really encourage you, if you missed last week, boss, I'm doing this for you, buddy, go watch it. I would totally tell him that even if you weren't here, right? No, for sure. Like, seriously, go back and watch last week because there are some really good things that I think all of us can learn from. And this week, I get the pleasure of kind of zoning in a little bit more when it comes to our phones. And I'm going to be talking about social media. Everyone's favorite thing, right? I can already feel some people are their blood's boiling a little bit, already thinking about like maybe the post that you saw last night or this week. Because I think sometimes we can get so lost in social media and kind of miss what's really happening around us, miss what's happening with us. And at least for me, and I think this is probably true for all of us, sometimes it can kind of feel like a how did I get here kind of moment. For me, when I think of a how did I get here kind of moment, I instantly think of when I was in college, I had this summer internship I was going to be doing in Atlanta. And for me, it was like I was really excited, and it was like the very first time I had ever had like the opportunity to like go on a road trip by myself. I was like, I think sophomore, going into my junior year. So I was really, really excited going into this. Didn't know what I was doing. Never road trip. Never really went on a big trip like that before. But I remember like I was going to be gone the whole summer. So like right before I left, all of a sudden I had all my friends, some mentors, people who were wanting to meet with me like, hey, you're going to be gone all summer. We want to hang out. So it was, my plan originally was to leave at like 8 o'clock that morning to like drive down to Atlanta. So, kind of start getting ready, all that stuff. Well, of course, as soon as I told people, hey, I'm leaving this day, all of a sudden that's when everyone wanted to meet. And so soon I started like, all right, well, you know what? I can get a one meeting, I'll get one breakfast with you. And then soon it turned into, I had like 4 different breakfasts. And they were all at IHOP, which I called the Hop at the time. Sorry, I apologize. For some weird reason, college Nico really loved IHOP. And I'm still a huge fan of breakfast at any time. If you serve breakfast, lunch, or dinner, I'm here for it. But maybe not going to IHOP that much anymore. So, as you can guess, right before a road trip, going 4 times to IHOP and because I was like too awkward to like, I'm not going to eat while I watch you eat. So I ate 4 full meals. And I was pretty full after the first one, if I'm going to be honest. And the last guy who wanted to meet, he's like, hey, man, I really can't meet before like 1 o'clock. So I was like, okay, man. So here it is. I'm finally done, 3 meals deep, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I still got to drive all the way down to Atlanta, never having done it before. So I'm like, all right, this is kind of late. Let's go. Get ready, getting in the car, getting ready to leave. And I realize I don't have the directions to get where I'm going. And this was actually the summer that the very first iPhone was put on sale. So like there was no GPS for me. I had to then go back to my parents' house, look up MapQuest directions for the address I was going. And I still don't remember exactly. The printer wasn't working. I don't remember out of paper, out of ink, whatever it was, couldn't print the directions. So then I just got I was like, no sweat. I'm going to rush. I don't have time for this. Got a little scrap of paper and just shorthand wrote all my directions. And I don't know if you guys are like me, but when I shorthand write things, like for like 2 minutes, I know exactly what I meant. But then like 5 minutes later, I'm like, I have no clue what this meant. And so I get on the road and start driving. And I remember I was feeling pretty good about it right up until I got to Tennessee. Because there is something about Nashville, for the first time when you're kind of just driving through, the exits, it feels like everything's flying. It felt like the Jetsons, like there's things going all around. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm looking at my little piece of paper. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And at this point, I've already stopped like twice for extended bathroom breaks, to put it nicely. And then I totally take the wrong exit. And instead of normally if you're on this trip, you're just driving right through Tennessee, kind of cutting through as fast as you can. No. I took a full left and just drove for 2 hours in the wrong direction. And then still had to take an extended restroom break at that point. And I remember in that moment being in that bathroom stall thinking, man, how did I get here? I finally thankfully made it. It was 4 or 5 in the morning. I was half falling asleep, trying to keep myself awake, calling my buddy, going, hey, how do I get to this place? I was stopping at all these gas stations. It was a whole thing. And it was all because at the moment I remember thinking, how did I get here? Obviously, now you can hear oh, it's because you were an idiot and you weren't planning like you were supposed to. I had no plan. I was just kind of going with the flow of what everyone else was doing. And I think, if we're honest, in a lot of ways, social media feels just like that. I think back in the early 2000s, social media started coming out, and at first it was, just on our computers, then it was smartphones, and now it's kind of everywhere. And I think a lot of times it kind of just feels like it came out of nowhere and just started taking things over, and we didn't really ask a lot of questions because we thought it was really fun, right? They say now, today, the average person has 7.6 social media accounts, which seems crazy, right? Because social media, at least for me, when I think of social media, normally I kind of think of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, some of those big ones, but social media is so much bigger than that, with things like LinkedIn, Pinterest, TikTok, Snapchat. All these different things are social medias that we are just kind of always being exposed to. And I think that social media didn't just happen to us. I think social media is having an effect on us. And I'm going to stand here right before we get into this. I want everyone to be clear, I'm on social media. I use social media. I really like social media. I don't want this message at all to come across as man, Bridgeway does not like social media. Got to delete everything. That's not where I'm coming from. So I wanted to start with the positive side of social media. And I don't think any of these are going to be crazy. Hopefully you guys are already feeling all of these. The first one, at least for me, when I think of social media and what I want it to do for me, is I just want to laugh. I want it to be funny. I remember one of the very first viral videos. I still think of this video all the time. It lives rent-free in my head. So real quick, hopefully you guys also think this is funny. Throw this up here. Hold on. When he gets up and still thinks he's nunchucking, can we do that one more time? I feel like we need to let that sit in just one more. The audacity to stand up and act like you're still going. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I love social media for that, right? The other thing that for me, especially in the last few years, I feel is social media has made me so much more aware of different stories, of different things going on. And for sure, there's definitely probably a point where you're all right, you don't want to know every last thing that's going on in the world. That can be a little overwhelming at times, right? But I think in moderation, getting to hear the story of other people, man, it has broadened my horizon so much to kind of hear other people in different life experiences that they've had that I would have never probably got to know or hear had it not been for social media. Another big thing, and I think this is probably the number one draw that most people say for positives, is that you get to stay connected to family and friends, right? You get to have that community, especially for me. My mom is originally from Finland, and so her entire half of the family all live in Finland. Needless to say, I don't make a lot of Finland trips anymore. So most of that family, I only get to connect to through social media, kind of seeing what's going on. And I think the last main positive, at least for me, is not just funny videos, but cute videos, right? Sometimes it's dogs, sometimes it's cats, and sometimes it's these cute little babies. Go ahead, throw it.
Hi, girls. It's August 6th. Is that right?
Yeah.
August 6th, 2012. Daddy's gonna play them a little song while they're eating their peas.
You guys ready? Perfect. Yeah, I can't watch that anymore. My heart is just going to explode with tears. Just want to hold my little baby. Yes, social media for sure has all kinds of positive things. Again, don't want to make sure the sound's coming from this. I like social media. I'm on social media. But there's also, as we can probably already see coming, and you guys already know, plenty of negative things that come with social media. Forbes magazine actually put out 6 ways social media has a negative effect on you. And this isn't just some guy coming up with random things. This is like they showed like different scientific studies that had been performed and like showed the results. And these were 6 things that came up. The first one is addiction. So first one, and they said like when they were studying people who were using social media, they had symptoms such as neglect of their personal life, mental preoccupation, escapism, has hit anybody yet? Mood modifying experiences, and tolerance and concealing the addictive behavior. I know I am not the only one who said, yeah, I'm not on social media that much, and then realized, oh, no, it was actually an hour that day, or whatever it was. Like, yeah, that is a huge thing that, like, those are all signs of an addiction. And they even showed signs of withdrawal when they were studying people when they stopped using social media. They said it was small, but it was still like a significant thing. And I know we all feel that. If you lose your phone or you don't have your phone for an hour and you're like, oh my gosh, what are they saying on Twitter? What are they saying on whatever? I need to know. That's like we feel like instantly everyone's trying to get a hold of us, right? So addiction. Second one is sadness. They found that actually the more time we spend on social media, the more sad that we get. Because the longer you're on social media, the more that you felt like you were socially isolated. You instantly felt like, man, everyone else is hanging out, everyone else has friends, and I'm kind of just sitting here by myself. So the more you were on social media, the sadder you became. And the next one is comparison. They said this was a huge one, and they actually talked, which I had never thought of it in this way. They talked about comparison in 2 different ways. They talked about upwards and downwards comparison. They talked about upwards, like when you look up at somebody like, oh man, they are so much better than me. I want to kind of aspire to be that person. Maybe you're kind of feeling like some envy about that person. And then also downwards comparison, where you're like starting to get like that little hit of like feeling good, like, oh yeah, I'm doing a lot better than this. I might not be doing great in life, but man, I'm doing way better than Cheryl over there. Can you imagine all the things she's saying on Facebook? Like, it's like kind of that upward, downward. And they said either one of them actually still leads obviously to comparison and lower rates of like happiness in life. Either one. Even like trying to make other people feel bad doesn't actually work. You're just making yourself feel bad. So, little warning. And then naturally, comparison leads to jealousy. The fourth one they found. And they said this is often, as I think we don't even always realize it. They said through the study that people often will like see something online and without even knowing that they're doing it, subconsciously start to go out and try to find something that they can do so they can kind of feel like they can almost one-up that person's photo. So then it almost becomes like a one-up cycle of like, oh yeah, they had a really good photo, now I'm going to do it, and they're trying to beat you. But what's crazy is they said when people kind of have this mentality, what they have found is that the people don't actually even remember like the memory or the things that were happening. They just remember like the moment they were taking the picture because they had to take it like 8 times with like the perfect lighting. And so like their whole picture isn't even like a memory they're remembering. They're just remembering that one little moment of actually taking the picture. They're missing the point, right? Fifth one is delusion. They said actually one of the things that they found constantly with people who use social media is that we have this thing called forecasting error. And I didn't look it up. I assume this has to do with weather is the name of it. But it is what we think like when you're having like a bad day or maybe having a rough moment and you think like, oh, hey, you know what? I'm just going to take a break. I'm going to get on social media just for a minute so it makes me feel better. And then like I kind of recoup and I'll get back into real life. What they found is we always think that if we get on there just for a minute, we're going to feel better. What actually happens is we go on just for a minute and then we actually feel worse about ourselves. So it does the opposite of what we actually think it's going to do for us. And then the last one is loneliness. Our brains, this is actually outside of social media, like they found like our brains are wired that we can only have so many connections. We can only have so many friends that we can keep up with. And social media, as you can guess, is like so much bigger than you could ever have connections to real people in real life. And the studies that they keep showing over and over is that when you hang out with a friend, even if it's not like a significant, even if you're just having fun, even if you're not doing anything worthwhile, you still have like, your body has therapeutic effects just from hanging out with somebody that you know and enjoying hanging out with them. But when you do that same thing and spend time on social media, none of those things are there. None of those therapeutic effects come from just spending time with people on social media. Which, as a side note, just to kind of talk again about our table groups, like that is why we really believe in table groups. That is why. Because we know, like, I don't know, maybe you guys are like me. Since I was in at least high school, every time someone says, oh, hey, today's the day that we're going to meet for your table group, your small group, whatever it is, I instantly go like, I don't want to meet. I dread it the whole day. And then when I leave that night, I'm always like, man, I'm so glad I did that. Like, I can't even put words to it, but I'm so glad, man, why would I ever get mad about doing that? And I fully believe it's because of this effect. So, again, table groups, go sign up. After the service, go meet Allison out there. It's going to be a good time. But besides that, what do we do with social media, right? Like, is it just like, all right, well, I'm just going to limit how my kids use it? How are we going to manage it? Maybe like all of us needed to show up. We'll have like a big bonfire. We can just kind of chuck our phones and all of our devices into the fire, get little pagers, beepers, go back, kind of start bringing toll phones back. I don't know, whatever that is. Toll phones, they're called pay phones, sorry. I don't know what toll phones are. Don't bring those back, people who bring things back. Yeah. So what do we do? Well, I want to look at a passage of Scripture, a verse of Scripture that I think is going to help kind of give us a little bit of clarity. This is actually written by a guy named Paul. He was an early Jesus follower, written to an early church in the city called Ephesus. So it's called Ephesians, just like we're Americans, because we live in America. It's called Ephesians. So this is what he said to them. Check it out. So be careful to live your life wisely, not foolishly. Take advantage of every opportunity because these are evil times. And I still remember, I don't remember exactly the moment, but I remember in high school reading this verse and kind of it threw me for a second. So I was like, evil times, man, you're getting old school on me, bro. You're just saying like all the times are evil? Like what? And I remember like kind of struggling with it for a while. I'm like, I don't know, evil times. Like I guess if I'm like working out, like that always kind of feels like evil times. But if I'm not working out, like what does this mean? And I think what he was saying in the bigger idea is that culture is leading us in a direction. Whether you realize it or not, the movies we watch, the TV shows, the music, all those different things, they're all leading us in a direction. And if we aren't aware of it, if we don't do anything about it, we'll just kind of go with the flow and we'll end up somewhere we never really planned on going. We'll just kind of just go with wherever they're doing that. So the question is where is social media leading us? Or maybe specifically, let's get focused. You don't got to say it out loud, but where is social media leading you? Like when you get on social media, like are you loving people better? Are you actually like taking time, or is it like, oh, like that person shared that story that is like you just put the little sad heart emoji and like you just left and like didn't actually respond to them, didn't talk to them, not trying to guilt anybody, do that all the time, try to get better. Like, is social media leading you to love people better, to listen better? I'll be honest, sometimes I feel like social media makes me do the opposite. I'm like, I already know what they think about that. I don't actually need to hear them talk about it anymore. Are you actually loving people better? And if the question, and you say that and you hear that and you're like, well, sometimes I do. Sometimes I get better at some of those things. I would say that's a problem. Because like we should be finding ways, like if it's only sometimes making us better, we probably need to start trying to whittle away some of the things that are extra that aren't really adding to our lives. Jesus has this statement that is probably one of the most famous things he ever said. This is classic church 101 kind of level stuff. But what I think is really good about it is it kind of gives us a grid for not only all things in life, but specifically I want to look at social media and the grid that we can use for it. This guy said like, hey, there's all kinds of rules, there are all kinds of laws. What is like, give me like the one thing. Like if I'm going to mess up on everything else, give me the one thing I need to know. This is what Jesus tells him. He replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your being, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. You must love your neighbor as you love yourself. So big three things there, right? Love God, love others. And for the record, I feel like we always want to emphasize those two. Maybe it's because those two are like maybe a little bit harder for us. But like I think the love yourself, like we for somehow don't ever want to talk about that one. And can I just say like, as someone who sometimes like when I'm on social media makes me love myself a little bit less, like on the things that I see, or maybe I think less of myself after I kind of see like all the different things going on. Like, can I just say like we need to make sure like we're still bringing that part up. Because it says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. So if we don't love ourselves very much, guess what? You ain't loving other people very well. It's kind of like a lid to the whole thing, right? So all that, the question is, like, who are you following on social media? And like, are there people that maybe you need to start changing? Like maybe for you, it's like you have like an old friend from like college, high school, whatever it is, or maybe an ex, and like you just follow them, not for like any weird reason. You're just like, you want to know what's going on in their life. You haven't talked to them in a while. And like, sometimes you just kind of scroll past their pictures, and like sometimes they post things that maybe your eye kind of lingers on it a little bit longer than you would admit to your significant other. And then all of a sudden, you kind of find yourself going to websites and to checking out different things because of that post, because of that person. Or maybe for some of us, like I said, I'm a parent, and it feels like there's only two kinds of posts on social media. One of it is like man, I made a mistake, and like some parent can find some sort of beautiful thing out of like being a really bad parent, but they make it look beautiful, and they give it like, oh, this was so good. But the majority of the posts are like, and I do the same thing, so I'm not trying to hate on anybody, is like you just show like the best moments of your family, right? You're just hitting the highlight reels. And when I see that, I'm thinking, man, all their kids are smiling, and look at the background. Their house looks immaculate. How did they do that? I don't get it, because that's not what I'm living. And instantly, no matter how I did that day as a parent, man, I already start to feel worse of how I'm doing as a parent. Or maybe for you, it's like influencers or like different people you follow, maybe like athletes, people who are doing, I don't know, home design stuff. I don't really follow that. I just know shiplap is a really big thing, is what I've been told. Shiplap everywhere. Throw it on things. So maybe for you, I don't know, I feel like that's what you're told to do. All right, so maybe for you, it's like someone that you started following originally that maybe you really look up to. Like maybe like for me, like I remember at one point I was following a whole bunch of like guys from like the NBA, got these giant athletes, thinking like, man, this is cool. And what kind of threw me off is like they post a lot of like videos of like them working out and like doing all these hard workouts. And every time I was like, oh man, I kind of just look the same as I did yesterday. And like instantly like, found myself really quickly falling into like, it went from inspiration to soon it was comparison. And then all of a sudden it was envy. And all of a sudden then it quickly turned into questioning, like, am I happy? Am I glad I'm doing the things that I'm doing? Am I happy with the life that I have? All because I was just following a couple people who originally were giving me so much joy kind of seeing the things they were doing. And I'm not saying, I know for every person in here, like there are different boundaries, there are different things. I'm not saying don't follow any of these people. I follow plenty of people that are my old friends. I follow plenty of people who are parents. I follow plenty of people who are athletes, influencers, whatever. But we need to be aware of like when we're following certain people, how it makes us feel. A pastor in Atlanta, Andy Stanley, he says this that I think is so good for this. Direction, not intention, determines your destination. Direction, not intention, determines your destination. Like, if I got in a car right now and said, hey guys, I'm heading to California, and then just got and started driving east, you'd be like, bro, you don't know how directions work, right? It doesn't matter what your intentions are and what you want social media to be. If we're not being like particular about the direction that we're going, it's not going to happen, no matter how good your intentions are. So what do we do? How do we handle social media in this way? Well, I want to go back to that first verse back in Ephesians. I think the first part kind of gives us a little something to look at. It says, so be careful to live your life wisely. Like, I think we just need to use the same filter, right, for social media. Like, how can we use it wisely? Same thing we do for life, use wisdom. How can we do that for social media? And there's this guy that we can read about in the Bible. His name is Solomon. He's known, you might have heard of him before. He's known as being the wisest man who ever lived. Because God basically said, hey, like, I'm going to give you anything you want. What do you want? And if it was me, I'd be like, bro, give me some Jeff Bezos, like, level of money. Because, of course I'm going to do really good things with it. But, I'm going to, like, give it away. I'm not going to keep any of it, of course. I'm going to instantly give it all away. No, but he was way smarter than me, clearly, even before he got this. But he asked God for wisdom. And this is what he says in the book of Proverbs. More than anything you guard, protect your mind, for life flows from it. More than anything you guard, protect your mind, for life flows from it. Like, protect your mind. Make sure the things that you're taking in really matter. Make sure you're not putting junk into your mind. And I think for social media, this can play out in 3 different ways. And I know for every person, as I'm saying these, I know it's going to be different, but let's talk through these. The first one that I think that we can kind of protect our mind when it comes to social media is how much time we spend. Like, let's be honest. Some of us, you would be embarrassed if we made you come up here and read how many hours you've been on social media this week. If you went into your little app in there that tells you all the hours. Like, if you did that right now, you would literally be peeing your pants because of how embarrassed you are. And some of you, let's be honest, you probably have spent that much, you just don't even know, and you're going to be a Mr. Judgy or Mrs. Judgy Pants right now. No. Like, we all, I would say, if you're on social media, there's a good chance you've had at least one day, if not way more, where you have been on social media way too long. So what if we just do something as simple as set a time limit? Like, if you have an iPhone, use the screen time app. I've heard this, what it's called. I'm Team Android, what up? So I'm digital well-being. Divisive, I know. There's an app in there in your settings called digital well-being where you can not only see like how long you've been on social media, but you can also set limits for yourself. Because if you're anything like me, I can't even tell you the amount of times where I have had a day where maybe I spent way too much time on social media and I kind of felt a little guilty about it. I'm like, man, what have I done? Like, I had like 2 hours to myself and I didn't do anything around the house. All I did was just sit there and scroll, and I don't even remember any of the things I actually just read. And so then I'm like, you know what? Tomorrow I'm skipping social media. We'll do like a little social media kind of skip day, whatever. And then we get to that day and I'm on it even more because I felt so bad about how much I was on it the day before. So for you, like, what's going to be your limit? What's your time limit? Is it like maybe like for like 15 minutes a day on like a social media? Like, kind of set that, or is it maybe like an hour for the week? And I think that these are good questions. Again, I can't give you the answer for what that amount looks like for you, but like, have you thought about that? Like, are we being intentional with the amount of time that we give it? Because we all know that social media can suck you in. So if we know that's true, we need to make sure we're setting limits to make sure that we don't kind of get sucked in, and that we can kind of like, all right, I got sucked in, but now this is the time limit and I'm done for the week, for the day, for however long. So yeah, there's that. The second thing that I think that we can kind of use to protect our minds is this: who we follow. Like, pay attention. Like, I can't even tell you the amount of times it drove me nuts sometimes when I was growing up, where my parents would say, hey, pay attention to who you hang out with because you're going to become like them, right? Like, that was always the thing, and sometimes that worked really well, other times it didn't work so good. But all that to say is that when we follow somebody on social media, you are instantly giving them access to your life. You're giving them access to speak into you. Whether you think about it that way or not, that's the truth. Because now all of a sudden, you're going to start seeing the things that they have to say. And maybe it is even someone, like I said earlier, like maybe someone that you instantly, like at the beginning, you really liked following, and all of a sudden now you're like, I don't really know if I'm getting a whole lot anymore. I'm not really enjoying it as much. Like, I just want you guys to know, I'm giving you a permission slip if you didn't already have this. You can unfollow anybody that you want. There's no rule. And this is coming from someone who knows a lot of Gen Z people who get really offended if you stop following them. Let me just say, you can freely unfollow anybody, and it does not matter. Like, you can do that, and that's okay. Permission slip granted. And you guys can do that because we should be quick to unfollow someone if it feels like something isn't making me better, or making me love God, love others, or love myself better. And they might not even have bad intentions. Maybe they're just posting pictures of their perfect life and their perfect family, and that's totally good. I'm not even mad at them. But my mind apparently isn't mature enough to be able to handle it, and so I just need to unfollow you. And I think that is 100% okay to admit that sometimes we can be broken, and sometimes your perfect thing might not be the thing that I need to see right now. And if you're like me, I think one of the things that I think that is a secret that I didn't know at first, that it was a game changer, is there's a mute button. Because like, I'm a people pleaser by heart for sure. They're laughing because they know how true it is. So what I think, there's so many times where I was like, oh, but I can't not follow this person. Especially like for me, I've had a lot of students over the years that like, I love them and they're awesome, but I don't want to see every last random thing that they tweet late night in college. Sometimes it messes with my heart a little bit. So what I just found out is, at least for sure on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, there's a mute button where they don't even know that you're not watching them anymore. They don't even know that you stopped following them. And then all of a sudden, that freedom and that peace of mind comes flooding back into you. And again, because we have that influence, we want to make sure we're being careful about that. And I do want to say this little side note on this, because I think we have to be a little careful on this. Because if we just unfollow everyone that we ever hear say something that we don't like, I think we can really quickly get into like this little echo chamber, where I think a lot of us kind of know, like, this is kind of part of maybe the issues that we're having as a country. There's plenty of issues, but this is one of them. Or all of us are so used to being on social media and we hear just the things that we want to hear. And I don't want it to get to that place. Because I think there's a really wise way, because I know this. You guys have seen this. There are people who can have conversations about things going on in the world, and like one person can post about it, and it's the most inflammatory. It instantly makes your blood boil, and you know they're just baiting people to argue with them on the internet. And there's someone else who can have the exact same viewpoint as them, and they can talk about things, and you're like, oh yeah, I actually understand where they're coming from when they say it like this. Like, it instantly changes the conversation, right? So maybe you just need less of these people, and you still need other differing opinions, because let's be honest, that's how we grow, that's how we're going to continue to grow as people. But maybe you just need to make sure you're following the right people. Unfollow those people. The last one is simply what we post. Everything you post affects someone that is following you, right? It affects somebody, whether you realize it or not. I know I have had multiple conversations where, like, I post something and I don't even think twice about it. I'm like, oh, here's a cute picture of my kids. And I don't think about it one more time. And then I've had multiple people for weeks, sometimes in good ways, go, oh my gosh, that's Unia. She's so cute. Oh my gosh, your boys are so grown, whatever it is. Like, they have all these great things to say, and I already forgot about it. But the other side is sometimes I post things and I don't even think twice about it. And then I have other people going, yeah, I really can't believe you posted that article. Like, that really upset me. Like, you're leading our church, you did this, you posted that, you liked this. And I'm like, whoa. I didn't even think that you cared about my opinion on this subject. And I think all of us need to just have this constant reminder that what we post, other people are reading. And depending on how we say it, can completely change how other people view not only us, but more importantly, how people view Jesus. And I think this is for free. I'm just giving it to you this for free. One of the things that I've heard a couple people do, I have not put this into practice, but I really want to, because I always think I'm so funny, I got to post in the moment. But I've heard a few people say, like, whenever they write anything for social media, they let it just sit in their drafts for 24 hours. And after 24 hours, if they still feel like that needs to be said, they'll post it. If they feel like they weren't just kind of maybe heated up in the moment, whatever else it is, let's be honest, none of us are really as funny as we think we are. So that joke can wait for 24 hours, okay? So all that to say is we also need to be careful of what we post. And last thing that I wanted to kind of talk about this. So we started this morning with that question of what kind of deal is it to get everything you want but lose yourself? We started with that question. And I think maybe for social media, we can kind of shift that a little bit. And this is what I think we could say. What good is it to keep up with everyone's life if it ruins yours? Like, what good is it? What does it matter what's going on in everyone else's life if we are just becoming less and less of who we are every single time we get on? And I think maybe for all of us, one of the best steps you could take from this is, like, what if we just take a break from social media? I kind of thought there would be an audible gasp, but that's okay, I'll take this. But what if we just take a break and evaluate, like, our social media habits? Like, maybe for you, it's just a day. Maybe for you, it's like this whole week. Maybe it's a month. Maybe for some of you, you're like, I know this is a huge issue for me. I'm actually going to take a year off so I can really do a lot of self kind of searching and figure this out. And as I say that, if some of you are already thinking in your head, literally no way is that happening. I'm literally checking social media right now as he's talking. Like, sorry, people on Facebook Live. But yeah, if that's where you're at, if your reaction instantly is no way am I taking a break from social media, man, I'll be honest, I think that probably says more about where your heart is with social media than anything that I've said. And that is the most telling thing that you could see for yourself right now. And I think one of the things, just take that pause and just feel what it feels like. And are you using social media in the way that you feel helps you love God, helps you love others, and helps you love yourself better? Or is it doing the other? Or maybe is it like a 50-50 thing? Because we don't want that. We want to cut that 50-50 out. We want it to just be something that's moving us in the right direction. A couple years ago, I had a vacation where we were there for a place for a week, and like the internet was super shoddy, it was super annoying. And I remember the first 2 days, like it was driving me up a wall because I really wanted to know what was going on with all my social media friends, all the things that was going on. And I would constantly like come up from the beach and I'd be like, oh, I got to find out. And like the internet was still so shoddy, like I'd either couldn't read it or there'd be so much I didn't have time to actually get through it all. And after about 2 days, on like that third day, I remember like there was like this weird switch that kind of got flipped where instantly I kind of felt like this weird peace of like, okay, it actually kind of feels good to not have to worry about social media. And like I remember the rest of that week, I felt amazing. Like I didn't have to think one time about my phone, and like part of it, obviously, vacation. But part of it was like I didn't have to think about all the other things that everyone else was thinking about. I could just worry about me and the things that I was trying to get done that day. And I think for a lot of us, if we take that break, we could experience some of that peace. Because all of us, we have a choice of how we can use social media. And are we going to be people to use it to help us love people better, to love God better, to love ourselves better? Are we going to use it to help us go to where God is calling us to go, to be able to influence others? Or are we going to have social media continue just kind of run rampant in our lives with no direction, thus just kind of letting it do whatever it wants and making it so we get more anxiety, more depression, more loneliness, more comparison, more envy, and just slowly become more and more a shell of who we really can be in our life with Jesus? Like which one? I think for all of us, we need to decide which one we're going to pick and if we think it's worth being intentional about it.